Confidence isn't built in comfort. It's built in the pain you keep avoiding. Most people think confidence comes from success, from winning, from getting things right, from feeling ready. So they wait. They wait to feel more certain, more prepared, more sure of themselves before they act. But that moment rarely comes because confidence is not what comes before action. It's what is built through it. And more specifically, through the parts of action that feel uncomfortable, uncertain, even painful. Because confidence is not about feeling good. It's about knowing you can handle what doesn't. You don't become confident by avoiding difficulty. You become confident by facing it again and again, even when it doesn't go well, even when you feel exposed, even when you feel like you're not enough. And that's the part most people avoid. The pain, the discomfort, the moments that challenge how you see yourself. Because those moments don't just test your ability, they confront your identity. They show you where you feel weak, where you feel unsure, where you don't fully trust yourself yet. So instead of facing that, most people move away from it. They stay where it feels familiar, where it feels safe, where they don't have to question themselves. And from the outside, it looks like stability, like control, like they know what they're doing. But internally, nothing is being built, only maintained. Because avoiding discomfort does not create confidence. It creates dependence. Dependence on conditions being right. Dependence on things going your way. Dependence on feeling ready before you act. And that kind of confidence is fragile because the moment things don't go as planned, it disappears. Real confidence is different. It doesn't depend on things going well. It's built from knowing that even when things don't, you can handle it. You can stay. You can move forward. You don't collapse. You don't run. You don't avoid. And that ability is built through experience, through doing things before you feel ready, through stepping into situations that challenge you, that expose you, that makes you question yourself. And according to Carl Jung, growth does not come from avoiding the shadow. It comes from confronting it, understanding it, integrating it. And the shadow is not just something dark or negative. It's everything you avoid about yourself, your insecurities, your fears, your doubts, the parts of you don't fully accept. And every time you avoid discomfort, you avoid those parts. You avoid seeing them, understanding them, working through them. So they stay hidden, unexamined, unintegrated. And what is unintegrated continues to control you. You hesitate, not because you can't act, but because you don't trust yourself. In the discomfort that might come with it, you avoid opportunities, not because they're impossible, but because they might expose something you don't want to face. And that's where confidence is lost, not in failure, but in avoidance. Because every time you avoid something that challenges you, you reinforce a message. I can't handle this. I'm not ready. I'm not capable. And over time, that becomes your belief. Not because it's true, but because you've repeated it through your actions. But the opposite is also true. Every time you face something difficult, even imperfectly, even uncomfortably, you send a different message. I can handle this. I can stay. I can move forward. And that message builds confidence, not instantly, but gradually, through repetition, through experience, through evidence. Because confidence is not a feeling. It's a memory of how you've handled things before, a memory of not collapsing when things felt uncertain, a memory of staying when it would have been easier to run. And those memories are built in discomfort, not comfort. Comfort maintains who you are. Discomfort expands it. And that expansion is where confidence grows, not from success alone, but from the willingness to face what challenges you, to step into what feels uncertain, to experience what feels uncomfortable, and not turn away. Because when you stop avoiding pain, you start building something real, something stable, something that doesn't disappear. The moment things get hard, you stop depending on outcomes and start trusting yourself within the process. And that trust is what confidence really is. Not certainty, not perfection, but the ability to face discomfort without losing yourself. And that only comes from one place. The pain you've been avoiding. The pain you avoid doesn't just disappear. It becomes your limit, quietly, gradually, without you realizing it. Because every time you move away from something uncomfortable, you don't just avoid the moment. You avoid the growth inside it. You avoid the part of yourself that would have expanded if you had stayed. And at first, it doesn't feel like a problem. It feels like relief. You don't have to deal with it. You don't have to feel exposed. You don't have to face uncertainty. So you tell yourself, it's not the right time. I'll do it later. I need to be more ready. But later becomes a pattern. And that pattern becomes your identity. You become someone who waits, someone who prepares, someone who thinks about doing things more than actually doing them. And the longer you stay in that pattern, the harder it becomes to step out of it. Not because you can't, but because you've trained yourself to associate discomfort with something to avoid instead of something to move through. So now, even small challenges feel bigger. Even simple actions feel heavy. Even opportunities feel threatening. Not because they are, but because your tolerance for discomfort has become low. And tolerance is everything. Because confidence is not built by removing discomfort. It's built by increasing your capacity to handle it. You don't suddenly become confident. You become capable of staying in situations that once made you want to leave. And that capability is built slowly, through exposure, through repetition, through choosing to stay when every instinct tells you to go. But most people never build that because they keep escaping. At the first sign of discomfort, they feel the tension and they back away. They feel the fear and they avoid. They feel the uncertainty and they retreat. And every time they do that, they reinforce the same belief. I can't handle this. I need to avoid this. I'm not ready for this. And those beliefs shape everything, not just what you do, but what you even consider possible. You start shrinking your life without realizing it. You choose paths that feel safer, more predictable, more controlled, not because they're aligned, but because they don't challenge you. And over time, that creates a quiet frustration, a sense that you're capable of more, but not stepping into it, a feeling that something is missing, but not knowing exactly what. Because the problem is not visible. It's not obvious. It's not something you can easily point to. It's the accumulation of avoided moments, missed opportunities, unfaced discomfort. And that accumulation becomes your limit, not a fixed limit, but a learned one. Because according to Carl Jung, you do not become enlightened by imagining light, but by making the darkness conscious. And the darkness here is not something external. It's internal. It's the parts of you that feel weak, uncertain, uncomfortable, the parts you avoid, the parts you don't fully trust, the parts that show up when things don't go your way. And every time you avoid discomfort, you avoid those parts. You avoid seeing them clearly, understanding them, working through them, so they stay hidden, unexamined, unintegrated. And what stays unintegrated continues to control you, not directly, but through hesitation, through self-doubt, through avoidance. You think you're making decisions, but you're reacting. You think you're choosing, but you're limiting, based on what feels safe. And safety becomes your trap, not because safety is bad, but because you rely on it to determine what you do. You only act when you feel comfortable. You only move when you feel ready. You only take risks when they don't feel like risks. And that's not confidence. That's control. Control built on avoiding discomfort. Real confidence is different. It's not about controlling the situation. It's about trusting yourself within it. And trust is built in moments where things are uncertain, where things don't go as planned, where you feel exposed and still choose to stay. Because every time you stay, you prove something to yourself, not intellectually, but experientially. You prove, I can handle this. I can stay present. I don't have to run. And that proof is what builds confidence, not success alone, but how you handle what comes with it. Because success without challenge does not build strength. It builds comfort. And comfort does not prepare you for difficulty. So when difficulty comes, it feels overwhelming. Not because it's impossible, but because you haven't practiced staying in it. And this is where everything shifts. When you stop avoiding pain and start using it, not as something to endure, but as something to learn from, you feel discomfort. And instead of asking, how do I get rid of this? You ask, what is this asking of me? You feel fear. And instead of backing away, you lean in, not recklessly, but consciously. You stay longer than you usually would. You go a little further than you're used to. You don't escape immediately. And those small shifts create something powerful. They expand your capacity, your ability to handle uncertainty, your ability to stay present, even when things feel uncomfortable. And as that capacity grows, your confidence grows with it. Not because you feel better all the time, but because you trust yourself more deeply. You trust that you can handle discomfort. You trust that you can adapt. You trust that you won't collapse when things don't go perfectly. And that trust is what allows you to take bigger steps, to face bigger challenges, to step into situations that once felt impossible. Because now, you're not relying on feeling ready. You're relying on your ability to handle what comes. And that's the difference between waiting and acting, between avoiding and growing. You don't wait for confidence. You build it through discomfort, through pain, through experience. And the more you do that, the more something shifts internally. You stop seeing discomfort as something to avoid and start seeing it as something that expands you. You stop fearing it and start understanding it. And that understanding changes your relationship with it. Because now, pain is no longer a signal to stop. It's a signal that something is happening, something that matters, something that can grow you if you stay with it. And that perspective is what separates people who stay stuck from people who grow. Not talent, not luck, not circumstances, but their relationship with discomfort. One avoids it, the other uses it. One sees it as a threat, the other sees it as a tool. And that difference changes everything. Because when you stop avoiding pain, you stop limiting yourself. You begin to step into things you once held back from. You begin to take risks you once avoided. You begin to face parts of yourself you once ignored. And in doing that, you don't just build confidence. You build something deeper. You build resilience, the ability to stay, even when things feel hard, even when things don't go your way, even when you feel uncertain. And resilience is what makes confidence stable, not temporary, not dependent on outcomes, but rooted in your ability to handle reality as it is. And that only comes from one place: the pain you stopped running from. At some point, you realize something uncomfortable. You don't lack confidence. You lack exposure to the parts of life you keep avoiding, because confidence is not built in the areas you already feel comfortable in. It's built in the moments you don't feel ready for, the conversations you avoid, the risks you delay, the situations you overthink before stepping into. Those are the exact places where your confidence is waiting. But instead of going there, you hesitate. You prepare more. You wait for the right moment. And that moment becomes an illusion, because what you're really waiting for is the absence of discomfort. And that never comes. So you stay in the same cycle, thinking about it, imagining it, analyzing it, but not fully stepping into it. And every time you don't, something subtle happens. You reinforce doubt, not consciously, but through repetition. I'm not ready. This is too much. I'll do it later. And those thoughts start to feel real, not because they're true, but because you've acted on them again and again. But the moment you do something different, everything shifts. Not dramatically, not instantly, but internally. You take one step, even while feeling unsure. You stay in a situation a little longer than usual. You speak, even when your voice feels uncertain. And in that moment, you create a new experience, not one based on avoidance, but one based on action. And that experience becomes evidence. Evidence that you can act without feeling ready. Evidence that discomfort does not destroy you. Evidence that you can stay even when it feels difficult. And that evidence starts to replace the old belief. I can't handle this. Becomes, I can handle more than I thought. And that shift is where confidence begins. Not from success, but from exposure. Because now, you're not imagining what might happen. You're experiencing it. And experience is what builds trust. Not trust in outcomes, but trust in yourself. Your ability to respond. Your ability to adapt. Your ability to stay present, even when things feel uncertain. And the more you build that, the less you depend on things going perfectly. You stop needing everything to be controlled. You stop needing certainty before you move, because you understand something now. That certainty is not required. Only willingness is. Willingness to step into discomfort. Willingness to feel what comes up. Willingness to not turn away. And that willingness expands your life. You start doing things you once avoided. You start taking risks you once delayed. You start facing parts of yourself you once ignored. And in doing that, you change your identity, not by thinking differently, but by acting differently. Because identity is not built on what you believe. It's built on what you repeatedly do. And now, you are someone who shows up, even when it's uncomfortable. You are someone who stays, even when it's uncertain. You are someone who moves forward, even when it's not perfect. And that identity is what creates real confidence. Not something fragile, not something dependent on success, but something stable, something rooted in your ability to handle reality as it is. And this is exactly what Carl Jung pointed toward. Not becoming fearless, but becoming aware. Aware of what you avoid. Aware of what controls you. Aware of what limits you. Because once you see it, you can face it. And once you face it, it loses its hold. Not completely, but enough to create space. Space to act differently. Space to choose differently. Space to move forward. And that space is where your life changes. Because now, you are no longer reacting to what feels uncomfortable. You are responding with awareness. You are not controlled by the fear of pain. You are guided by your ability to move through it. And that is the difference between avoiding discomfort and using it. One keeps you stuck. The other builds you. One limits your life. The other expands it. And once you understand that, you stop waiting. You stop preparing endlessly. You stop needing to feel ready. And you start moving. Not because it feels easy, but because you know you can handle what comes. Because now, you are no longer living from what you've been avoiding. You are living from what you understand. And that is what transforms everything. Not the world around you, but your experience within it. Because confidence was never something you lacked. It was something you hadn't built yet. And it was waiting in the pain you kept avoiding. At some point, you stop asking, how do I feel more confident? And start asking, what am I still avoiding? Because the answer is always there, hidden in the things you delay, the things you overthink, the things you keep telling yourself you'll do later. And when you look honestly, you see the pattern. It's not lack of ability. It's avoidance of discomfort. And that realization changes everything. Because now, the path becomes clear. Not easy, but clear. You don't need more motivation. You don't need more preparation. You don't need more time. You need exposure. You need to step into the things that challenge you, that stretch you, that make you feel uncertain. Not all at once, not recklessly, but consistently. Because consistency is what rewires your response. You feel discomfort, and instead of backing away, you stay. You feel uncertainty, and instead of freezing, you move. You feel fear, and instead of avoiding, you face it. And those moments stack. They build quietly, gradually, powerfully. You don't notice it immediately, but something inside you is changing. You start reacting differently. You start thinking differently. You start responding instead of retreating. And over time, that becomes your default. Not avoidance, but engagement. You begin to trust yourself. In situations that once made you doubt yourself, you begin to feel stable, even when things are uncertain. Not because uncertainty disappeared, but because your capacity increased. And that's what most people misunderstand. Confidence is not built by controlling life. It's built by becoming someone who can handle it as it is, unpredictable, uncertain, imperfect. And that ability comes from experience, not thinking, not imagining, not preparing, but doing. Doing while uncomfortable, doing while unsure, doing while imperfect. And every time you do that, you reinforce something deeper. I can handle this. I can stay. I don't need to run. And that reinforcement builds self-trust, not surface-level confidence, but something deeper, something stable, something real. Because self-trust is what holds you when things don't go as planned. It's what keeps you grounded when things feel uncertain. It's what allows you to continue, even when it's hard. And that's what makes confidence durable. Not success, but your relationship with difficulty. Because success will fluctuate. Outcomes will change. Things will not always go your way. But if you trust yourself, you don't collapse with it. You adapt. You adjust. You continue. And that is power. Not control over everything, but control over how you respond. And this is what Carl Jung pointed toward. Not avoiding the parts of yourself that feel weak, that feel uncertain, that feel uncomfortable, but facing them, understanding them, integrating them. Because those parts are not the problem. Avoiding them is. And the moment you stop avoiding them, they stop controlling you. Not completely, but enough. Enough for you to act. Enough for you to move. Enough for you to grow. And growth is where confidence lives. Not in comfort, not in certainty, but in expansion. Expansion beyond what you're used to. Beyond what feels easy. Beyond what feels safe. And every time you expand, you become more capable, more grounded, more resilient. Not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. And that strength is not loud. It's not obvious. It's quiet, steady, reliable. It shows up when things get hard, when things don't go your way, when things feel uncertain. And instead of collapsing, you stay, you respond, you move forward. And that is confidence. Not something you wait for, not something you hope for, something you build through pain, through discomfort, through experience. And once you understand that, you stop avoiding it. You stop running. You stop waiting. And you start stepping into it. Because now, you see it clearly. The pain you avoided was never there to break you. It was there to build you. And everything changes the moment you stop running from it and start using it. If you're still waiting to feel confident, you're going to be waiting forever. Because confidence doesn't come first. Action does. Discomfort does. The moments you keep avoiding, that's where it's built. So be honest with yourself. What are you still avoiding? The conversation? The risk? The step you know you should take, but keep delaying? Because according to Carl Jung, what you avoid doesn't disappear. It controls you until you face it. So stop waiting to feel ready. Stop waiting for certainty. Stop waiting for confidence to magically appear. Step into the discomfort, even if it's small, even if it's messy, even if you don't feel prepared. Because that's where it starts. That's where it builds. That's where you change. And if you're ready to stop avoiding and start becoming someone who can handle more than they think, subscribe. Because this isn't about motivation. It's about transformation through the discomfort you've been running from.